In Washington, D.C. tomorrow, a controversial voter ID law is being challenged in court, and at stake could be the 1965 Voting Rights Act. The Department of Justice says the voter ID law in Texas would disenfranchise 600,000 minority voters who don't have the approved form of identification. Also pending this month is a lawsuit against the Pennsylvania voter ID law, which could stop even more people from voting in November. And joining me is Leila McDowell of the Advancement Project, who's involved in both lawsuits. Welcome, Leila. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So your group intervened in the Texas case, which goes to trial tomorrow. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we hope that the court will uphold democracy, because that's what that case is ultimately about. 600,000 already registered voters would be disenfranchised by this law potentially. And when they passed this law, they knew it was a discriminatory law. The data was there. It was raised in the debate in the state legislature, and they knew that there was no fraud at all. One of the sponsors of the bill admitted that, but they passed it anyway. And what this is, go ahead, Alex.
No, but I just want to ask, what exactly does this law ask for, and how do we know that number 600,000 would be affected?
So what this law asks for, like the other state photo ID laws, it's very restrictive in that it asks you to provide certain information, certain documents in order to get a state photo ID. And you already have to provide documents and identification for when you register to vote. But this is very restrictive, unlike the federal law. And so it's so restrictive that, for example, college students, college IDs are not accepted. Gun licenses are. College ID is not. So the 600,000 are people who don't have that state photo ID and will not be able to go to the polls and vote unless they get it. And getting those underlying documents can be extraordinarily difficult, and it can be expensive.
Okay. What about the suit that your group has also filed against the Pennsylvania voter ID law? That is a key swing state. This one goes to trial later this month on the 25th, and that really could affect the outcome of the November election. What do you expect to happen there?
Well, it very much could, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that democracy is being used as a pawn in partisan politics. The House Republican majority leader said Romney can win Pennsylvania with this photo ID law because it disenfranchises close to 760,000 registered voters. What was the margin of victory between Obama and McCain? It was 622,000. We know it's a close race. I think a recent poll that was done showed a 9% difference between Obama and Romney. So it's very clear that if you disenfranchise voters like Mrs. Applewhite, 93 years old, she marched with King for the right to vote. And now because she can't get a birth certificate, she's going to be unable to vote this year.
So is there anything that people can do to try to turn this around for themselves? I mean, if they can't get a driver's license or something with this voter ID, is there anything that can allow them to vote then in November?
Well, we're going to be working with people, but to try to do that, to try to get the underlying documents. But 85% of colleges, for example, don't give the kind of ID that is required by this very restrictive law. It's one of the most restrictive in the country. And people are going to be confused. They've only got 4 months until the election. And that's part of why we're hoping that we will win in court and at least get an injunction to stop this law from going into place until the fall. We are seeing these laws all over the country in battleground states. And the thing that I think is so troubling about it, Alex, is that election day, is the one day in America where we are all equal. Whether you're black, white, young, old, rich, or poor, you know, when you pull the lever for the candidate of your choice, you have an equal voice in our democracy. And the right to vote is as old and sacred as the Declaration of Independence. And that is what's being threatened today by these voter suppression laws.
Something that should be cherished, absolutely. Leila McDowell, thank you. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.